The driver shook his head. Most private martial arts school owners are only 1-star, maybe 2-star at best. But that guy, I heard, is already a 3-star fighter. He's taken plenty of business in Yang City and now wants to do the same in Rong City. Qin Chen nodded. Competing for business was normal. You said someone got hurt? Which martial arts school was it? Qin Chen asked curiously. Seems like it was the Shanghai Martial Arts School. Oh? Qin Chen's expression changed. At that moment, the sign of the Shanghai Martial Arts School lay shattered on the ground, fragments scattered everywhere. The courtyard was a mess. Inside the hall, several groups of people in martial arts uniforms stood around, each representing a different school. Qin Chen blended into the crowd unnoticed, staying silent as he observed the confrontation between the two sides. One group wore the uniforms of the Shanghai Martial Arts School. Leading them was not the school's owner, Wang Shanhai, but Qin Chen's classmate and good friend, Wang Hai. Wang Hai's face was dark with anger, his clothes disheveled, he'd clearly just taken a beating. The other group wore uniforms with Longhu Martial Arts School embroidered on them. Qin Chen didn't recall any school by that name on this street. They were clearly the ones from Yang City. The leader was a burly, square-faced, middle-aged man with a full beard. His expression was stern as he looked down on Wang Hai. Shanghai Martial Arts School, is this really the best you've got to represent you today? The most successful school in Rong City, and this is all you amount to, the square-faced man sneered coldly. And all of you other schools here, none of you can even put up a decent fight? How disappointing, he added, casting a disdainful glance at the onlookers. The disciples from the surrounding schools were furious but didn't dare to speak out. They had all been challenged and defeated earlier. They had gathered here to discuss a plan, but the man had struck first, beating Wang Hai and making a show of his dominance before sitting down. Tianhu, you've already challenged my school, and my father is still bedridden because of you. We didn't stop you from opening your school. What more do you want? Wang Hai demanded angrily. Qin Chen observed Wang Hai closely, noticing how much he had changed. Despite his anger, the disciples of Shanghai Martial Arts School stood firmly behind him, supporting him. I've made it clear. Call Qin Chen to come here. Hand over your Shanghai Martial Arts School to my Longhu Martial Arts School. It's that simple, Tianhu replied coldly. You? Wang Hai's face darkened with rage. The crowd quickly realized Tianhu's true intentions. Shanghai Martial Arts School had been thriving ever since it started using Qin Chen's name. New students signed up daily, drawn by its reputation. Tianhu wanted to use this opportunity to challenge Qin Chen directly, hoping to gain fame from defeating him. They even planned to rename Shanghai Martial Arts School to Longhu Martial Arts School, keeping its established reputation and location in one stroke. But Wang Hai had no intention of bothering Qin Chen over this. Qin Chen was busy training at an academy, and Wang Hai didn't want to disturb him. Besides, even if Qin Chen came, it wouldn't solve the problem. Tianhu was already a 3-star martial artist. Seems like you're still unwilling to cooperate, Tianhu said, glaring at Wang Hai. Fine then. I'll keep challenging your school every single day until Qin Chen shows up. And I won't stop until every school on this street has suffered. Tianhu, you've gone too far, someone from another school couldn't help but shout angrily. Tianhu ignored the outburst and smirked. If you open a school, you should be ready to be challenged. If you don't have the strength, don't open one. It's that simple. The crowd's faces turned grim. Do you all want to gang up on me? Do you even dare? Tianhu mocked. If they all attacked together, he might not win, but they would all lose their reputations and potentially their schools. According to martial arts school rules, being challenged was normal. But banding together to attack a challenger was considered dishonorable and against the rules. At that moment, Wang Hai pulled out his phone, ready to seek help. Xiao Hai. Suddenly, a weak voice called out from behind. A disciple was helping an older man walk into the hall. Father. Wang Hai hurried to support his pale-faced father, Wang Shanhai. Don't make the call, Wang Shanhai said weakly. If you call Qin Chen, you're falling into his trap. We might as well just close the school. I'm not calling Qin Chen to solve the problem. I'm calling him to tell him we'll stop using his name, Wang Hai said firmly. Whether or not the school could stay open wasn't the priority anymore. He didn't want to drag the other schools on the street into this mess. If we close the school, we won't use his name, Wang Shanhai said, shaking his head. That won't do. A voice suddenly interrupted. Wang Hai turned to see Qin Chen stepping out from the crowd. Qin Chen! Wang Hai exclaimed in surprise. The crowd also looked at him in shock. Is that really Qin Chen? The under-18 2-star martial artist, Rome City's top prodigy? Qin Chen's unexpected arrival left everyone stunned. What are you doing here? Wang Hai whispered urgently. Qin Chen smiled. You're talking about using my name, then not using it. Did you ever think about asking me? Don't mess around. Wang Hai scolded him seriously. At that moment, Tian Hu spoke up. You're Qin Chen? Do I not look like him? Qin Chen asked, pointing to the wall where his photo was displayed prominently alongside Wang Shanhai's. Tian Hu nodded. You do. A true talent indeed. But for such a talent to be tied to this trashy school, what a shame, he said, shaking his head. What exactly do you want? Wang Hai demanded angrily. Tian Hu ignored him and stared at Qin Chen. At first, I thought about recruiting you into my school. But then I realized, defeating you would be far more exciting. Recruiting Qin Chen would bring in business, but defeating him would bring fame and attract even more students. How do you plan to beat me? Qin Chen asked casually. Tian Hu smirked. As the head of my school, I challenge you, the honorary instructor of this one. Even if I injure you, no one will blame me. Get ready. Before he could finish, Qin Chen vanished, reappearing in front of Tian Hu in an instant. Courting death. Tian Hu sneered, throwing a punch straight at Qin Chen's chest. In the next moment, Qin Chen caught his fist with one hand. A surge of immense force traveled through Tian Hu's arm. He attempted a counterattack, but with a sharp crack, his wrist bone snapped. Ah! Tian Hu let out a miserable scream as Qin Chen controlled his arm, forcing him to kneel, unable to move. Master of the Longhu Martial Arts Hall, how do you plan to beat me? Qin Chen asked coldly. Tian Hu's face turned pale, unable to respond. Qin Chen continued, I heard your Longhu Martial Arts Hall has strong influence in Yang City. Perfect timing, I'll be heading there in 2 days. Let's see what you've got. You'll regret it if you come. Tian Hu warned through gritted teeth, his voice filled with pain. Let's see how strong you really are, Qin Chen said, delivering a swift kick. Bang! Tian Hu flew out of the hall like a ragged dog, landing heavily on the ground outside. Get out of here! Qin Chen ordered coldly, glaring at the remaining Longhu disciples. Trembling, the group quickly ran out of the hall, hastily picking up Tian Hu and carrying him away without daring to stop, fleeing toward the martial arts hall gates. The crowd, witnessing the Longhu disciples leave in such a sorry state, finally snapped to their senses. Everyone stared at Qin Chen in shock, disbelief written all over their faces. Wasn't he supposed to be a 2-star warrior? The city bulletin wasn't wrong, but Tian Hu was definitely a 3-star warrior. Everyone present knew Tian Hu's strength. Although he had just recently broken through to 3-star level, a 3-star warrior was still a 3-star warrior, with a minimum combat power of 2000. And yet, Qin Chen had defeated him so effortlessly. No one could wrap their heads around it. Wang Hai stared blankly at Qin Chen. At first, he was confused, but soon he understood. My buddy is strong, but this is insane. He thought of Qin Chen's progress and realized that even a 3-star warrior wasn't invincible. Qin Chen looked at Wang Hai and asked, now the martial arts hall doesn't have to close, right? With you here, who would dare even suggest it? Wang Hai exclaimed, his voice loud with excitement. He felt that knowing Qin Chen was the greatest fortune of his life. Show's over. Everyone, you can disperse now, Qin Chen said, turning to the members of the other martial arts halls. Thank you, Master Qin. Thank you, Master Qin. The various hall masters cupped their hands in gratitude. Without Qin Chen, the Shanghai Martial Arts Hall might not have stood a chance. With Longhu's overbearing tendencies, it was only a matter of time before all the martial arts halls on this street were swallowed up. Qin Chen nodded slightly in acknowledgement. After the crowd dispersed, he turned to Wang Shanhai and asked, Uncle, are your injuries serious? Not too bad, but I'll need a few months to recover. It's not all bad, though it'll give Hai a chance to try managing the hall, Wang Shanhai said with a smile. He had been observing Wang Hai's dedication recently. Though Wang Hai had only just started down the path of cultivation, he believed that managing the martial arts hall would be well within his capabilities. I've reached the early stage of body strengthening. My talent's not too shabby, Wang Hai said with a grin. Stay for dinner tonight. I didn't get to treat you last time, so I'll make up for it now. Qin Chen waved his hand and glanced around the martial arts hall. Have someone clean up first. Dinner can wait, the hall is the priority. I was just passing through this time. I need to head back soon. Wang Shanhai and Wang Hai could only nod in understanding. Next time, we'll definitely have a proper feast. Wang Hai shouted as he watched Qin Chen walk out of the martial arts hall's gate. When Qin Chen got home, Qin Dai and Li Xiufen were overjoyed to see him. Qin Dai's injuries were gradually improving thanks to the abundant nutritional supplements. Qin Chen was pleased and transferred another 2 million from his account, leaving just a small amount for his own use. The cost of supplements and medicine was steep, but it was worth every penny. As for beast crystals, he decided to hold off for now. After all, 2 million wasn't even enough for him to advance half a level. The next 3 days, Qin Chen stayed home and didn't go out. 3 days later, on a train heading from Rong City to Yang City, Qin Chen sat by the window. Across from him were two girls, one with a delicate and elegant appearance, the other slightly chubby with a few freckles on her face. Next to them sat a trendy-looking young man with long hair. He deliberately kept his distance as he sat, his demeanor faintly suggesting disdain. "Did you hear what happened yesterday? The master of Longhu Martial Arts Hall in Yang City was beaten," the young man asked in a low voice. "Yeah, I heard it was that prodigy, Qin Chen," the freckled girl said excitedly, clearly eager for gossip. The other girl didn't respond, her gaze occasionally drifting toward Qin Chen as he stared out the window. Qin Chen wasn't conventionally handsome, but there was something about him, a unique air that drew her attention. His calm, steady eyes seemed to possess a magnetic quality, gradually capturing her interest. Even though she didn't know him, she inexplicably felt a sense of confidence and determination emanating from him. Sitting beside him gave her an inexplicable sense of safety. "I don't even know him." Zhou Hui shook her head, trying to dispel the random thoughts running through her mind. "Qin Chen beat him? Impossible. You guys might not pay much attention to Yang City, but I know for a fact that Tian Hu had just broken through to 3-star before coming to Rong City. A 3-star warrior being instantly defeated by a high schooler? No way. It must have been someone from Rong City who stepped in." The young man shook his head disdainfully. Though Qin Chen's reputation surprised him, he refused to believe the rumors of Qin Chen defeating Tian Hu. It had to be an exaggeration, a rumor blown out of proportion as it spread. "Really?" The freckled girl seemed to reconsider. "Of course." The young man nodded, then turned to Zhou Hui. "What do you think, Hui?" "Just call me Zhou Hui," she replied, glaring at him for interrupting her thoughts. Here is the translated and adapted content for an American audience while keeping the original structure and formatting. "I had decent talent back in my early body cultivation days," Wang Hai said with a smile. "Stay for dinner today. I didn't get to host you last time, so let me make it up." Qin Chen waved. "First, have someone clean up the martial arts center. Business comes first. As for dinner, we can be flexible," Qin Chen instructed. "I still have to hit the road. Can't afford to delay." Wang Shanhai and Wang Hai nodded in agreement. "Next time, we'll have a proper drink together," Wang Hai called out loudly as he watched Qin Chen leave the doorway. When Qin Chen returned home, his parents, Qin Dai and Li Xiufen, were overjoyed. With the help of abundant nutritional supplements, Qin Dai's injuries had improved significantly, which made Qin Chen very happy. Qin Chen transferred another 2 million from his account, leaving only a small amount for himself. The supplements for treating old injuries were expensive, but they were worth every penny. As for beast crystals for condensing divine patterns, he decided to hold off for now. 2 million wasn't even enough to advance half a level. For the next 3 days, Qin Chen stayed home and didn't go out. 3 days later, on a train from Rong City to Yang City, Qin Chen sat by the window. Across from him were two girls, one with a delicate and composed appearance, the other slightly chubby with freckles on her face. Beside them sat a fashionably dressed young man with long hair. He kept his distance from Qin Chen, as if slightly disdainful. "Have you guys heard? The Yang City Dragon Tiger Martial Arts Hall's head was defeated," the young man whispered to the two girls. "I heard about it. They say it was that genius Qin Chen." The freckled girl nodded enthusiastically, excited like she was watching a drama unfold. The other girl didn't say a word, but her gaze occasionally drifted toward Qin Chen. To her, Qin Chen wasn't traditionally handsome, but he had a unique aura. There was something captivating about his eyes, as if they held a magnetic pull. Though she didn't know him, the confidence and determination he exuded made her feel inexplicably safe. "I don't even know him," Zhou Hui shook her head, trying to shake off her wandering thoughts. "Qin Chen defeating Tian Hu? Not likely. Honestly, I don't follow Yang City news much, but Tian Hu just broke through to become a 3-star martial artist," the young man scoffed. "There's no way a high schooler could take down a 3-star martial artist. It must have been some powerhouse from Rong City." The freckled girl blinked in realization. "Oh, so that's the case?" "Of course." The young man nodded, then turned to Zhou Hui. "Hui, what do you think?" "Just call me by my name," Zhou Hui said sharply, clearly irritated by his familiarity. Her voice rose slightly. Qin Chen, who had been gazing out the window, suddenly turned his head. "Sorry for disturbing you," Zhou Hui apologized quickly, realizing her voice had been too loud. Her eyes held a trace of nervousness as Qin Chen glanced her way. "It's fine," Qin Chen replied calmly, then turned back to the window. Seeing Zhou Hui apologize to Qin Chen, the young man frowned. What none of them noticed was that some people from the Dragon Tiger Martial Arts Hall were sitting nearby. They had heard the conversation clearly. Tian Hu's expression darkened as he gave an order, "Go shut them up." Still recovering from his injuries sustained in Rong City, just hearing the discussion about the Dragon Tiger Martial Arts Hall soured his mood. Several martial arts disciples immediately stood up and walked toward Zhou Hui and the others. These men were tall and imposing, and their presence instantly drew attention from nearby passengers. The freckled girl noticed them first. The young man was about to speak but was quickly stopped by her. When the young man turned to see what was happening, his face turned pale. Did they hear us? He thought nervously, lowering his head. The martial arts disciples stopped beside their seats. Weren't you just talking about us? Keep going. Why stop now? The freckled girl turned pale with fear. None of them had trained extensively, so they were no match for these men. Let's just apologize and move on, one of the disciples said with mock generosity. Fine, we'll apologize, the young man said with a sigh of relief. Offending the Dragon Tiger Martial Arts Hall's head could spell trouble after getting off the train. They were well aware that the Martial Arts Hall not only had Tian Hu but also Tian Long, a 3-star martial artist and the hall's founder, who was also Tian Hu's brother. The fact that Tian Hu was merely asking for an apology was already a mercy. The freckled girl also stood, ready to apologize. Why should we apologize? Zhou Hui, however, didn't budge. The martial arts disciples frowned, their stares growing sharper. Zhou Hui stood her ground, retorting, did they lie about what happened? I didn't even say anything. She had been focused on Qin Chen the entire time and hadn't mentioned the martial arts hall. An apology felt unwarranted to her. Hui, the young man urged her nervously. Zhou Hui ignored him and turned her gaze to Qin Chen. Qin Chen had remained silent the entire time, his attention seemingly fixed on the scenery outside the window, as if none of this concerned him. The young man, frustrated that Zhou Hui wouldn't listen, looked upset. Were it not for his feelings for her, he would have distanced himself from her a long time ago. This girl's got some guts, one of the martial arts disciples sneered. Let's see how long that attitude lasts. Then, they turned their attention to Qin Chen. What about you? Got anything to say? Are you talking to me? Qin Chen asked, raising an eyebrow as he slowly turned his head toward them. He hadn't intended to get involved. His trip to Yang City included plans to cross paths with the Dragon Tiger Martial Arts Hall, but he hadn't expected them to provoke him first. Seeing Qin Chen's calm demeanor, the martial arts disciples' expressions changed drastically. Some even seemed unsteady on their feet. The once arrogant men suddenly grew nervous. At that moment, a trained safety officer, sensing the tension, approached the group. Relieved to see the officer, the martial arts disciples immediately nodded and made their way back to their seats. Before leaving, they cast one last nervous glance at Qin Chen. The safety officer confirmed they had left before walking away. The young man and the freckled girl let out long breaths. Good thing the safety officer showed up. Apologizing in front of everyone would have been so embarrassing, the young man said. Yeah, it's surprising how scared they were of the safety officer, the freckled girl added quietly. The young man chuckled. Well, safety officers may not be strong, but they're official personnel. If you don't cooperate, they'll report you, and you could get arrested or even have your martial arts hall's business affected. The freckled girl nodded, now understanding. The young man turned to Zhou Hui. You were way too impulsive just now. Was I wrong? Zhou Hui snapped back. Already unimpressed with the young man, she now found him even more irritating. That's not what I meant, the young man stammered, trying to explain. He glanced at Qin Chen, hoping to shift the blame, but Qin Chen shot him a cold glare, silencing him immediately. Zhou Hui stared at Qin Chen, convinced now that the martial arts disciples had left not because of the safety officer but because of him. On an impulse, she said, Hi, I'm Zhou Hui. As soon as the words left her mouth, her face turned red with embarrassment. Qin Chen turned to look at her and responded calmly, Hi. Zhou Hui let out a small sigh of relief and mustered the courage to ask, Can I know your name? Qin Chen. You're Qin Chen? Zhou Hui's eyes widened in shock. The freckled girl beside her also gasped, You're really Qin Chen. Here's the translated content, structured to maintain the original paragraph formatting and layout. These past few days in Rongqing, they had heard numerous rumors about Qin Chen, each more astonishing than the last. The guy was fuming inside when he saw Zhou Hui actively approaching Qin Chen. You're Qin Chen, he asked, feigning surprise. I heard you injured Director Tian a few days ago. Just now, when those people from the Longhu Martial Arts School came looking for you, you acted like you didn't know them? His tone was sarcastic, causing Zhou Hui to frown. Indeed, I don't know them, Qin Chen nodded. To him, those martial arts apprentices weren't even worth remembering. The guy sneered, clearly not buying it. Injuring a director and not recognizing them? Impossible. About 10 minutes later, as the train slowed down with the station announcement, they arrived in Yangchang. The group disembarked, with the Longhu Martial Arts School people trailing close behind. Though Qin Chen didn't look back, he could still feel the murderous intent emanating from Tian Hu's gaze. His expression remained calm as he headed toward the station's exit. The guy followed behind, calling out, Qin Chen, wait up. He deliberately raised his voice. Zhou Hui frowned but still followed, intent on getting Qin Chen's contact information. The freckled girl, seeing the two leave, had no choice but to tag along. Finally, Tianhu, supported by others, hurried forward. "Did you make the call?" Tianhu's voice was deep and menacing. "Yes, Director Long is waiting," a disciple responded. Ahead, the guy continued chasing after Qin Chen, and the group quickly reached the exit. As they stepped outside, a group of people stood in the distance. Leading them was a man who bore a striking resemblance to Tianhu. "Brother," someone shouted. Tianhu barked loudly, "That's him. The one who injured me." He pointed directly at Qin Chen. Tianlong approached Qin Chen. "So, you're the one who injured Tianhu?" The guy who had followed Qin Chen was stunned, trembling as he backed away, terrified of being associated with him. The freckled girl, however, stared at Qin Chen with a mix of curiosity and admiration. Zhou Hui froze, her mind now clear. She realized that those martial arts disciples earlier had indeed fled because of Qin Chen, not because of the security officer. "It was me," Qin Chen nodded. Tianlong's eyes narrowed. "You've got guts. Not only did you hurt someone, but you even dared to come to Yangcheng and ride the same train as Tianhu." Qin Chen remained indifferent. "It's not a big deal." Tianlong was livid. "Detain them all." He advanced toward Qin Chen. "Since you're here, you can spend a few months in jail first." Qin Chen stood his ground, calm and unflinching. Just as the confrontation was about to escalate, the screech of tires tore through the air, and an off-road vehicle skidded to a stop nearby. Both men's expressions shifted as they stepped back. Tianlong caught sight of the license plate and froze in shock. A military plate. The car door opened, and a woman in military uniform, exuding an aura of authority, stepped out. She glanced at Tianlong, then at Qin Chen. "What's going on here?" "Instructor Yang," Qin Chen greeted with a smile. "Nothing much, just ran into some acquaintances and was about to give them a friendly hug when you interrupted." Yang Shui sighed. "Save it for next time. For now, come with me." She turned and got back into the car. Qin Chen shrugged at Tianlong, then followed her. As he got in, he suddenly remembered something and looked at the three people being detained. "Instructor Yang, I have two friends. Can they come along?" Yang Shui frowned but eventually nodded. Qin Chen waved at Zhou Hui. Seeing this, Zhou Hui hesitated but struggled to move. The martial arts disciples, intimidated by Yang Shui's presence, dared not stop her and let her go. Once freed, Zhou Hui grabbed the freckled girl and ran toward the off-road vehicle. The moment they climbed in, Yang Shui floored the gas pedal and sped off. "What about me?" the guy called out in panic. "I don't know him." Qin Chen's voice rang out from the car. The guy watched the vehicle disappear, his face pale with fear. "Get him in the car," Tianlong shouted. "I don't know them. I don't know them," the guy protested desperately, shaking his head. Tianhu sneered and slapped him. "Don't know them? You sat together on the train, got off together, and came here together." From the rearview mirror, Qin Chen saw the Longhu martial arts school members dragging the guy into a van before driving off. In the car, Zhou Hui and the freckled girl looked pale. They were fortunate not to have been taken, otherwise, they might have ended up severely injured or hospitalized. The off-road vehicle drove 2 more kilometers before pulling over by the roadside. Qin Chen looked at Zhou Hui and the freckled girl. "You two can get off here." Zhou Hui nodded but lingered, hesitating to speak. As the car started moving again, she finally mustered the courage to ask, "Can I have your contact information?" She knew there was a vast gap between them. If she didn't ask now, it might be even harder to meet again in the future. She didn't want to regret not trying. Qin Chen smiled. "If fate allows, we'll meet again." With that, the vehicle drove off. He glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Zhou Hui still standing there, looking disappointed. He chuckled and shook his head. "You sure are decisive," Yang Shui suddenly remarked. Qin Chen laughed. "I have to be. People like me deal with these situations all the time. Cutting ties quickly is the only way." Yang Shui rolled her eyes at him. "By the way, where are we headed?" Qin Chen asked. "The Yangcheng Sports Center. All participants for the General Star Selection are gathering there." "The selection has started already?" Yang Shui nodded. "Originally, it was scheduled to start in 2 days, but something happened on the front lines, so it was moved up. After the selection, the final contest for the General Star position will follow immediately." Qin Chen's heart sank. Trouble on the front lines was no trivial matter. "How bad is it?" he asked. Yang Shui shook her head. "Not too serious, but there might be a level 4 beast riot soon. Although level 4 isn't particularly high, we need to be absolutely prepared, so the selection had to be expedited. A level 4 beast riot posed moderate risks, not fatal, but every outbreak required full-scale efforts to contain. The military district acted preemptively to avoid clashing with the college entrance exam period. After the exams, results would be released, and the competition to recruit talent would intensify. The military was an exception. They were granted the authority to recruit prodigies in advance due to their role in safeguarding national security. This privilege gave them priority over others. However, even if recruited by the military, students were still required to attend university. Whether they joined the military after graduation was uncertain, so the advantage wasn't absolute. Half an hour later, they arrived at the sports center. On the field, there were already more than a dozen male and female candidates. Qin Chen was the last to arrive. "Do you think everyone's like you?" The others all arrived in Yangcheng a day earlier. Yang Shui snapped at him. She had informed him that the selection would begin 3 days later, assuming he'd come early. Instead, he showed up on the 4th day, forcing her to pick him up. "Does it matter?" Qin Chen grinned. "Confident, are we?" Yang Shui asked. "These people? I could take them all down with one punch each," Qin Chen said as he surveyed the field. He wasn't being arrogant. Most of the candidates were at the peak of body refinement, with a handful at the beginner martial artist level. Compared to him, they were clearly outmatched. Yang Shui warned, "Don't underestimate them. There's been a change to the assessment." "What kind of change?" Qin Chen frowned. "You'll find out soon enough." "Just don't mess up," she replied curtly. "This is section 3741. I have processed the content based on your request, maintaining the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall formatting. Below is the result." Qin Chen was incredibly powerful, capable of defeating most opponents with a single punch. He had previously watched Zhao Liang's video. While Zhao relied on drugs to boost his strength, Qin Chen reached a 3-star level effortlessly through martial arts. Under normal circumstances, this assessment wouldn't have been an issue. However, the change in rules made Qin Chen feel there was a conspiracy brewing. Qin Chen grew alert. Before long, over 10 military-clad individuals approached the crowd. These were instructors from the Genius Training Camp, with Yang Shui among them. Qin Chen glanced at their military ranks. Yang Shui held the highest rank, while the others were about the same level as Luo Bin. "Everyone." Yang Shui stepped forward and addressed the group. "Initially, we planned for a week-long assessment. Unexpectedly, there's been a situation at the front line, so the assessment is being expedited and simplified into a free-for-all." Qin Chen instantly understood why Yang Shui had told him not to underestimate the challenge. He scanned the crowd and noticed no one appeared surprised. Clearly, they were already aware of this format. He also realized everyone was looking at him. "Are they planning to gang up on me?" He smirked slightly. "Let the free-for-all begin." Qin Chen laughed. He suspected Yang Shui and the instructors had deliberately changed the format to a free-for-all to make things more challenging for him. When he defeated Zhao Liang, his combat power had just exceeded 1,000. Strong, yes, but not invincible, and he couldn't rely solely on the blazing sun fist. The instructor's coordinated efforts could indeed cause him trouble. But Qin Chen confidently thought, "I'm not at the same level as I was before." Yang Shui continued explaining the rules. First, injuries are inevitable in a free-for-all, but participants may surrender. Once surrendered, they will no longer be attacked. Second, the arena is the surrounding lawn. Stepping off the lawn means elimination. Third, there's no time limit. The last one standing wins. Understood? Understood. The group responded in unison. Seeing the group's enthusiasm, Yang Shui and the instructor smiled and stepped aside. An instructor pulled out a starting pistol and fired. The assessment officially began. At first, no one made a move. Everyone was testing the waters, but eventually, all eyes settled on Qin Chen. He smiled and knocked out the person next to him with a single punch. Speed is the essence of all martial arts. What are you waiting for? He's on to us. Attack together, someone shouted. Qin Chen laughed loudly. These people's acting was terrible. It would have been harder not to notice. As the dozen or so individuals charged toward him, he stood his ground, unmoving. "Instructors!" Qin Chen suddenly called out. The instructors looked at him, puzzled. Qin Chen grinned and said, "You really understand me. This kind of assessment is my favorite." With that, he threw a fierce punch at the person in front of him. The man's expression changed. Even before the punch landed, he felt an overwhelming pressure. He quickly raised his arms to block, but Qin Chen's fist accelerated, breaking through his defense and striking his chest directly. Bang! The man was sent flying, knocking over several others behind him before passing out. Qin Chen advanced quickly, taking several steps to close the distance to the group. The dozen or so individuals hesitated, shrinking back despite surrounding him. "Don't be afraid, it's just one punch." In a flash, Qin Chen appeared before one of them and knocked him unconscious with a single strike. "Attack together. Don't let him pick us off one by one." Seeing Qin Chen had already taken down 3 people, the The remaining 14 couldn't sit still any longer and charged at him, shouting. "This is getting interesting," Qin Chen exclaimed, throwing another punch. Bang! The first fell. Then the second, the third. With every punch, someone dropped, unable to get back up. Suddenly, there was a loud bang as a fist struck Qin Chen's back. "Ha! I hit him," someone laughed triumphantly. Qin Chen turned around and said calmly, "Not bad, but your strength is lacking. Keep trying." Before finishing his sentence, he slapped the man on the head. The man barely had time to revel in his success before blacking out. At this point, only 3 remained on the field with Qin Chen. The trio surrounded him from 3 angles but hesitated, stepping forward 1 step only to retreat 2. Just 3 left, and he's still terrifying. Their nerves were frayed. In just 10 minutes, over a dozen had been taken down, leaving only the 3 of them. Among those knocked out were even a few 1-star martial artists. The remaining 3, still at the peak of body refinement, weren't even close to being a match. Outside the lawn, the dozen instructors stood slack-jawed, unable to believe what they were witnessing. "Wasn't his combat power just over 1,000, someone asked, looking at Yang Shui in disbelief. The other instructors also turned to her, their faces filled with confusion. How could someone with a combat power of just over 1,000 be this unstoppable? Even if Qin Chen ultimately won, it shouldn't have been this one-sided. He's grown stronger," Yang Shui admitted helplessly. She was just as puzzled. Qin Chen's performance now exceeded 3-star levels, and this was his normal state, not a temporary burst of power. Did he grow this much stronger so quickly? The instructors were stunned. It had only been 3 days. Yang Shui remained silent, unsure whether Qin Chen had been hiding his strength or had made a breakthrough in such a short time. Either possibility was abnormal. On the field, Qin Chen shouted, "Come at me together." The 3 hesitated no longer and turned to flee. Qin Chen was momentarily surprised, then locked onto one and gave chase. A team needs to work together. Bang! The person didn't even make it far before collapsing. Qin Chen turned to the next person, whose face turned pale as he saw Qin Chen closing in. "I surrender," he shouted. "Surrendering is embarrassing," Qin Chen called out. "Losing to you isn't embarrassing." The man ran desperately but was pushed to his limits. He shouted to the instructors that he was surrendering, but before they could respond, Qin Chen's attack landed. The man's eyes rolled back, and he sank into darkness. "Too bad. You were so close," Qin Chen said with a sigh. The last person was almost off the lawn, thinking he'd be the only conscious survivor. A smile appeared on his face. "What are you smiling about, classmate?" A voice suddenly sounded in his ear, making him shudder. Before he could finish, a powerful force struck him, and despair washed over him as he fell. On the field, Qin Chen stood victorious while the others were carried off for treatment. In a large room, over a dozen instructors surrounded him, their eyes filled with shock. "Don't look at me like that. You're making me blush," Qin Chen said with a chuckle. Yang Shui asked seriously, "What's your actual strength?" At this point, Qin Chen's capabilities were entirely beyond her comprehension. Was being dual element really this terrifying? 1-star martial artist, Qin Chen replied. "Stop lying," Yang Shui glared at him. "Could a 1-star really be this monstrous?" "I'm a dual element 1-star martial artist," Qin Chen said helplessly. He didn't mention his triple element capabilities, but dual element martial artists, though rare, did exist in Long Nation. So both elements have broken through. No wonder. It was then that the oldest instructor, Xia Jun, finally spoke. "Let me know if further adjustments are needed." Everyone cast puzzled glances, and he said in a deep voice, "This is classified. You're the elite of the military, so it's fine for you to know. Qin Chen, if you consider joining the military, pretend you never heard this. If not, forget this place altogether." "I'll definitely join the military," Qin Chen nodded. Beast crystals were the fastest way to enhance his strength, and the most effective path was through the military and the battlefield. Xia Jun nodded and continued, "You all know that Dragon Nation has 4 martial saints." Everyone nodded. Those who reached 9 stars and beyond were called martial saints. Dragon Nation had 4 of them, one of whom was the founder of the military, revered as the god of war, Xia Nantian. General Xia isn't just above 9 stars, he's a dual-path 9-star expert. The revelation was like a bombshell, stunning the crowd. Although they had never met Xia Nantian, they only knew he was a martial saint, a 9-star powerhouse. But the truth was hard to believe. 9 stars was the pinnacle of strength, earning the title of saint. To imagine a 9-star martial artist achieving a dual-path level was beyond comprehension. Dual path? That's unbelievably powerful. The instructors exclaimed in awe. That's why I believe achieving a dual-path breakthrough is absolutely possible. Xia Jun looked at Qin Chen as he spoke. Qin Chen quickly responded, "Instructor Xia, your insights are indeed extraordinary." He hadn't expected Xia Jun to proactively explain. However, what Xie Jun said wasn't entirely accurate. Qin Chen was actually training in 3 paths. His strength came from that, dual path alone wouldn't achieve the same level. Xie Jun was talking about experts like Xian Antian, whose multipath cultivation became increasingly demanding but also more powerful over time. Alright, now everyone knows Qin Chen's true strength. But when submitting the records, just state that he's a 1-star martial artist, Yang Shui announced with a smile. The other instructors exchanged sly grins. Naturally, those from Jiang province wanted to claim this rising star as their own, and concealing his true strength would catch others off guard. Soon, the instructors gradually left, leaving only Qin Chen and Yang Shui behind. Yang Shui stared at Qin Chen and said, "There's a reward for the assessment. If you want money, it's 4 million. If you want martial arts, it can be exchanged." 4 million? Qin Chen was stunned. The reward was substantial. He knew there were always rewards, but this amount was unexpected. Yang Shui remained composed. 4 million isn't much, it's the reward for Jiang province's first place. The military's budget is tight, but they spare no expense in nurturing talent. The military was the department most in need of exceptional individuals in Dragon Nation. What if I don't join the military? Qin Chen asked. You can choose not to join, but the money must be returned. Yang Shui smiled. The military wasn't foolish. Offering the reward upfront was meant to inspire gratitude, increasing the likelihood of talents joining later. That's fair, Qin Chen nodded. Have you decided yet? Money, martial arts, or weapons? Yang Shui asked. Qin Chen shook his head. I don't want any of those. I want a tier 1 beast crystal. Yang Shui was momentarily stunned and looked at him seriously. Beast crystals are only used for crafting equipment, which is very time-consuming. I suggest you choose something that directly enhances your strength. After some thought, Qin Chen said slowly, Instructor, you don't understand. The reason I've achieved this is because... Because of what? Yang Shui asked, intrigued. She had always been curious about Qin Chen's rapid progress but had refrained from prying out of respect for his privacy. Qin Chen smiled faintly. Don't tell anyone. Of course not. Yang Shui eagerly nodded. I have a master guiding me. He's very interested in researching beast crystals and wants to use them to transform martial artists' physiques, enhance their strength, and even develop unique martial arts. Yang Shui's expression froze, admiration evident in her gaze. Your master. She began. He wants to focus on his research and doesn't wish to be recognized. But he said that when his findings are mature, he'll share them publicly. Qin Chen quickly interjected. Yang Shui nodded thoughtfully. Your master is remarkable. She knew that many unsung researchers in Dragon Nation had made tremendous contributions to the development of martial arts. Decades ago, someone had even developed a drug that granted dual-path talents, though the success rate was extremely low. Yet, some had succeeded. And now, Qin Chen's master and his disciple were quietly researching ways to improve these results. My master is primarily studying triple-path cultivation, Qin Chen added. He was preparing for the future, aiming to master multi-path cultivation. Yang Shui was shocked but nodded again. I'll exchange the reward for a tier 1 beast crystal for you, Yang Shui offered. Qin Chen was delighted. Thank you, instructor. My master specializes in fire path, so a fire-type crystal would be best. When he returned to his quarters, Qin Chen finally turned his attention to his system. The rewards for the second phase of the Rising Star selection had been delivered, and the third phase mission was now open. Mission objective, earn the title of Rising Star in the Western Battle Zone. Mission reward, 3 Earth Affinity Shards. Qin Chen was quite satisfied with the reward. 3 Earth Affinity Shards would instantly elevate his Earth Path realm to 1 star, saving him a lot of time. He shook his head, flipped his hand, and took out an Earth Sensitivity Enhancement pill. After swallowing it, he immediately felt a heightened connection to Earth elements. Ding! Your Earth sensitivity has increased to 8. Ding! Your Earth affinity has advanced to SS. He didn't stop there. 3 more affinity enhancement pills appeared in his hand, each containing wind, ice, and earth energy. Without hesitation, he swallowed them all. Ding! Your wind affinity has advanced to SSS. Ding! Your ice affinity has advanced to SSS. Ding! Your earth affinity has advanced to SSS. Reaching the highest level in 3 affinities instantly thrilled him. Strength could be enhanced with beast crystals, but martial arts required personal comprehension. The higher the affinity, the faster the progress, and naturally, the stronger the combat power. Time to open another loot box. Qin Chen stared at the martial arts box in his system space, filled with anticipation. With a thought, he opened the box, and a stream of information poured into his mind. Frost Finger. Martial art description, a 7th grade martial art that eliminates enemies with a single finger. Exclusively for Ice Path practitioners, ***. The description was brief, but as a grandmaster-level martial art, it didn't disappoint. Unlike other techniques, the Frost Finger didn't indicate any potential for upgrades, making it a standalone grandmaster skill. Still, Qin Chen was satisfied it would significantly boost his combat power before he reached the grandmaster realm. All my martial arts, aside from the 4th grade skill gifted by the City Lord's Mansion, are 7th grade or higher, Qin Chen reflected with satisfaction. He hadn't even practiced the 4th grade Fire Path skill since it wasn't useful and he didn't want to waste time. For the rest of the day, he focused on comprehending Frostfinger, gradually enhancing his strength. The next morning, a knock came at the door. It was a soldier sent by Yang Shui, delivering the Fire Path Beast Crystal he had requested. This is section 3941. Please process the following content according to your logic. Maintain the original paragraph structure, line breaks, and overall layout. Return only the processed result. Help me thank Instructor Yang, Qin Chen said to the soldier. Yang Shui acted quickly, just mentioned it yesterday, and it arrived early this morning. It was clear that she and her mentor had put a lot of thought into it. I'll pass the message along, the soldier replied before leaving. Qin Chen opened the wooden box and found 9 fire element beast crystals inside. The number caught him slightly off guard. It should have only been 8 based on the rewards. Looking closer at the crystals, he noticed one of them was a 2nd-tier beast crystal, with a small note tucked underneath. The note explained that this particular crystal was purchased by Yang Shui herself as a gesture of respect for Qin Chen's master. Yang Shui usually seems cold and distant, but I guess she's got a warm side too, Qin Chen chuckled to himself. However, the system didn't display any option to absorb the 2nd-tier crystal, likely because his fire element was only at 1 star, making it incompatible with a 2-star beast crystal. He set the 2nd-tier crystal aside and picked up a 1st-tier crystal instead. Immediately, the system prompted him that it was ready for absorption. Without hesitation, he absorbed it and quickly felt a change. Ding! 1st-tier beast crystal absorbed successfully. Your fire element's 2nd divine mark progress is now at 30%. As the system notification appeared, the mark visibly changed. He proceeded to absorb the remaining crystals one by one. After absorbing them all, the system pinged again. Ding! Your fire element's 2nd divine mark progress is now complete. Suddenly, a powerful surge of energy swept through, lifting his clothes as the room filled with intense heat. Fire elemental energy spread invisibly in all directions. Once everything settled, Qin Chen could feel the tangible improvement in his strength. Combat power, 3,800. He was stunned as he reviewed the system data. Fire elements contributed the most to combat power, with an increase of nearly 2,000 in one go, far exceeding his expectations. If he could enhance his other elements as well, even if he didn't reach 4-star strength, the gap wouldn't be too significant. While the wind element didn't boost combat power as much, its agility enhancements still contributed considerably. His attention then returned to the 2nd-tier beast crystal. Holding it in his hand, the system immediately displayed a prompt. 2nd-tier fire element beast crystal, ready for absorption. He didn't hesitate and absorbed it. The 3rd divine mark for the fire element began to rapidly emerge on his elemental imprint. After fully digesting the beast crystal's energy, his progress reached 10%. My combat power has improved again. Now, can I take down Tianlong without relying on martial techniques? Qin Chen wondered to himself. Tianlong was much stronger than Tianhu, having been a 3-star martial artist for nearly a year. However, in his 40s, his talent wasn't particularly outstanding. In that year, he hadn't even reached the level of a mid-tier 3-star martial artist. The military district selection is coming up. Time to check out the Longhu Martial Arts Hall. Qin Chen left his room and took a taxi straight to the martial arts street in Yang City. The street was eerily quiet, lined almost entirely with Longhu martial arts halls. The taxi dropped him off at the entrance of the street, and Qin Chen walked in, seeing Longhu martial arts signs on both sides. He didn't immediately enter any hall and instead kept walking forward. The street stretched about a kilometer long, with over 30 martial arts halls. Only one hall wasn't branded as Longhu. This lone martial arts hall sat at the very end of the street, and its signboard was in the process of being replaced. The previous sign had been smashed to pieces. Qin Chen approached and saw the new sign read Tiger Extinguishing Martial Arts Hall. Interesting name, he remarked aloud. The man installing the sign turned to look at him and smiled. I just came up with it. The old name was different. Are you the head instructor? Qin Chen asked. The man nodded while securing the sign. That's right, though right now I'm just a head instructor without any students. His tone was calm, but Qin Chen could pick up the helplessness behind it. This street had been nearly monopolized by the Longhu martial arts halls. Any hall that refused to join them faced constant harassment, like this one, with no students and its sign frequently vandalized. Why are you holding out when the rest have joined the Longhu martial arts system? Qin Chen asked out of curiosity. Although Longhu martial arts was domineering, they still needed instructors, so most former owners were retained as staff. Those unwilling to rebrand were left like this man, empty halls with no students and endless trouble. The man was silent for a moment before finally answering, "This hall was left to me by my father. He adopted me and raised me since I was a child. I've thought about giving up, but every time I remember my father's dying wish to carry on the hall's legacy, I just can't. My skills may not be exceptional, but I still have my pride." After speaking, he seemed to realize something. "Are you here to learn martial arts?" "I am," Qin Chen nodded. "Seriously?" The man was surprised. Visitors weren't unheard of, but no one ever chose his hall over the Longhu martial arts halls. In the past, anyone who did try ended up beaten so badly by Longhu's people that they never returned. Of course, Qin Chen replied earnestly. To challenge a martial arts hall, one needed a valid affiliation. While he was nominally associated with Shanghai Martial Arts Hall, it was just a title. Nominal instructors could help defend against challenges but weren't allowed to issue their own. He could force a challenge, but they could refuse him. To ensure that anyone in the Longhu system had to accept his challenge, he needed to officially join a hall even as a regular student. "You're open for business, right? Don't tell me there's no tuition fee," Qin Chen teased. "Of course there is." The man, now tying up the sign, quickly came down the ladder, afraid of losing this rare opportunity. "I'm Shingang. Let me get you registered, you'll be my student from now on." "About the tuition fee. I'll decide on the fee after observing for a day," Qin Chen interrupted with a grin. Shingang nodded in agreement. In this era, getting just one student was a blessing, and tuition fees couldn't be pushed too hard. Soon, Shingang led Qin Chen inside and registered him on the computer. "If you decide to stay, I'll teach you my unique skill Iron Mountain Crash," Shingang promised, envisioning a bright future for his new student. Qin Chen only smiled faintly and said, "Instructor Shin, I think our hall's name isn't intimidating enough." "Oh?" Shingang was taken aback. He'd worked hard to come up with Tiger Extinguishing Martial Arts Hall, which symbolized taking down Longhu. He thought it was already quite imposing. "What do you suggest we change it to?" Shingang asked. "Kill dragons, extinguish tigers," Qin Chen replied coolly. Shingang's expression shifted. It was only then that he realized Qin Chen was even more determined to destroy Longhu martial arts than he was. "Fine. Kill dragons, extinguish tigers." Shingang suddenly laughed. "I'll go get a new sign." Qin Chen quickly stopped him. "I'll handle it." With that, he walked straight out. Shingang stared at his back, sensing something unusual. But instead of heading to make a new sign, Qin Chen went to a workshop to get a martial arts uniform made. After putting it on, he returned to the entrance of a Longhu martial arts hall. Gazing up at the sign, he leaped lightly, grabbed hold of it, and pulled it down. As he entered the hall, the sign was hurled with force, smashing into the reception desk and shattering into dust. The crowd in the lobby turned their heads in unison. "Dragon Slayer and Tiger Annihilator Martial Hall trainee, here to challenge." A moment of silence. Qin Chen scanned the room coldly. "No one dares to step up?" The crowd finally snapped out of it, their eyes fierce. "I'll do it." Boom! A trainee charged forward. Qin Chen threw a single punch, sending the person flying. They crashed into a table before passing out. "Not good enough," Qin Chen sneered, shaking his head dismissively. Faces paled as the crowd exchanged nervous glances, none daring to step forward. Most of them were only at mid-body refinement stage and had no confidence after witnessing a single punch knock someone out. The Dragon Tiger Martial Hall, terrorizing martial halls in Yangchang and even challenging the ones in Rongqing, yet this is your level? Qin Chen watched as everyone hesitated, shaking his head. "I'll even let you all come at me together." He stepped forward, one deliberate step at a time. "Together." Someone called out, but before finishing, they were silenced with a single punch. Fear spread through the crowd. No one had even seen how Qin Chen had moved. "If none of you come, I'll come to you." Qin Chen advanced further, his fist ready. "Stop." A commanding voice rang out. 3 figures approached, followed by a dozen trainees. "Master Luo, Master Zhang, Master Zhao," the trainees exclaimed. The 3 nodded, their expressions grave as they locked eyes with Qin Chen. "Here to challenge? State your name and background." "New trainee of the Dragon Slayer and Tiger Annihilator Martial Hall," Qin Chen replied calmly. The trio's expressions darkened. They had never heard of such a martial hall, clearly suspecting it was a deliberate provocation against the Dragon Tiger Martial Hall. "Shingang just changed the signboard to Tiger Annihilator Martial Hall," one trainee whispered. The trio turned to Qin Chen, asking coldly, "You're Shingang's new recruit?" "You could say that," Qin Chen nodded. "Fine, you're here at the right time. No need for us to come to you. If you're here to challenge, we'll settle this in the martial arena." The trio turned and headed for the arena. At the martial arena, Qin Chen stood alone on one side, dozens of people watching from the other. His expression remained calm. One at a time, or all together? Qin Chen asked coldly. Arrogant. The crowd erupted in anger, and Master Luo was the first to step forward. His footwork was swift, his palms striking out with a whistle of wind. Let me see what makes you think you can challenge us. As the palm strike approached, Qin Chen's figure flickered and disappeared. Master Luo's pupils contracted as a voice sounded beside him, You're too slow. A slap landed, leaving his head buzzing. You? Master Luo stumbled back and collapsed heavily to the ground. The other two martial masters' faces changed drastically, realizing Qin Chen was no ordinary opponent. You're Qin Chen? Master Zhao blurted out in shock. They had heard of the incident with Tian Hu. A young, powerful fighter coming to challenge them, it could only be him. Not bad. Shall we continue, or will you call for someone in charge? Qin Chen asked the remaining two indifferently. No need. A voice echoed from afar. Everyone turned to see two figures approaching. Master Long and Master Hu, both trainees and martial masters, called out in unison. Tian Long and Tian Hu nodded, their gazes locking onto Qin Chen. Tian Hu's eyes burned with hatred, while Tian Long's were filled with curiosity. I didn't expect you to actually come. Qin Chen's presence clearly surprised him. Ever since their encounter at the station, Tian Long had assumed Qin Chen would be taken away by the military, never to reappear. He had planned to let things slide, unwilling to provoke trouble with the military. But now that Qin Chen had shown up on his own, and to challenge their martial hall, it gave him the perfect excuse to act without fear of military interference. If I didn't come, I was worried you'd be too scared to show up the next time you heard my name, Qin Chen said coolly. Remaining calm, his demeanor only fueled Tian Hu's anger. Qin Chen, you truly are a terrifying talent, but this arrogance of yours will be your downfall. Have you considered this? Once you step into our martial hall as a challenger, you may never leave again. Tian Hu's gaze turned vicious. In martial hall challenges, deaths were not uncommon. Usually, people avoided going to extremes, but with Qin Chen daring to come, they had no qualms about ending him here. Even if the military valued Qin Chen, they wouldn't interfere in this matter. The military had its rules, and so did the martial halls. The rules of the military were set by the martial saint, as were the rules of the martial halls. In the Dragon Kingdom, all martial halls were subordinate to the Longevity Martial Hall. Both the military and the Longevity Martial Hall were founded by the martial saint. As long as the martial hall's master reached a 4-star level, the hall could join the Longevity Martial Hall. Although they had not yet reached that level, they were already considered reserve members. The military would not break the rules for Qin Chen. So, how do you plan to fight? Qin Chen asked, now slightly intrigued. It's simple. Tian Hu said coldly. We fight for victory and for survival. Just what I wanted to hear. Go! Tian Hu waved, and dozens of trainees charged forward. He had no intention of fighting Qin Chen one-on-one. Victory was only possible through overwhelming numbers. The trainees obeyed, their expressions serious. One clenched his teeth and charged ahead. Qin Chen took a single step forward, throwing a punch. Bang! The trainee bent over, his face pale. Blood spurted from his mouth as his eyes filled with shock and unwillingness before he collapsed, lifeless. The crowd froze, their faces turning pale. Seeing their companion dead, they hesitated, their steps faltering. Qin Chen's eyes swept over them coldly. If you're ready to fight to the death, step forward. Otherwise, step back. Hearing these words, no one dared move closer. They retreated, unwilling to risk their lives for the Dragon Tiger Martial Hall. Pathetic! Tian Long snorted, stepping onto the field himself, his movements swift as he closed in on Qin Chen. Tian Hu, join me. With that, his palms turned crimson, resembling molten iron. Qin Chen, taste my innate skilled blood iron palm. The air crackled as his palm struck out. Tian Hu, seeing Tian Long unleash his life or death skill, hesitated for a moment before joining in. Innate skills, once awakened, significantly boosted combat power. Unlike the temporary bursts of martial techniques, innate skills provided sustained power enhancement. Tian Hu knew Tian Long was aiming for a decisive strike and attacked with everything he had to flank Qin Chen. Qin Chen locked his gaze on the incoming palm, feeling a strong sense of pressure but only slightly. Boom! Clenching his fist, his eyes burned with fiery determination. His entire body radiated heat like a blazing sun, his strength surging. As the palm neared, he struck back with a powerful punch. In the next moment, fist met palm. Qin Chen barely swayed, standing firm like a mountain. Tian Long's expression changed as cracks appeared on his blood iron palm. Crack! The massive palm shattered like glass. Ah! Tian Long screamed in pain, staring in horror as his hand disintegrated. Qin Chen's figure flickered, dodging Tian Hu's attack and swiftly closing in beside him. Your speed is too slow. As the words fell, he reached out and, with a crisp crack, snapped Tianhu's neck effortlessly. Tossing the lifeless body aside, he then turned his gaze toward the pale-faced Tianlong. Silence. A deathly silence. Tianlong's face was ashen, his hand severed. Everyone watching felt a sharp, stinging pain, their hearts pounding with fear. They glanced at Qin Chen again, as if they were staring at a young devil at that. Qin Chen walked toward Tianlong, step by step, his expression calm. Tianlong trembled all over. Qin Chen, spare me. Qin Chen shook his head. If you've chosen life and death, don't regret it. With that, he raised a finger and lightly tapped Tianlong's forehead. Tianlong's eyes widened as a chilling cold pierced into his body, freezing his organs and bones. You're an ice element user. He stammered in terror, confused as to how Qin Chen possessed 3 elemental abilities. Bang! Before he could react, he collapsed and died. The frost finger, one strike to slay a dragon. Qin Chen glanced at the lifeless bodies of Tianlong and Tianhu, his gaze icy, and turned to leave the martial arts hall. After taking just a few steps, he suddenly stopped, looked back, and said, "Clean this up yourselves." Why yes. The martial arts students trembled all over and hurriedly responded. At the same time, at Miehu Martial Arts Hall, Shingang had been waiting for Qin Chen for a while. Worried that he had taken the wrong path, Shingang stepped outside. As soon as he exited, he saw Qin Chen walking out of Longhu Martial Arts Hall, heading in another direction. Shingang quickly caught up, intending to remind him that the sign-making shop wasn't that way. But then he noticed the strange atmosphere at Longhu Martial Arts Hall. The students were in a panic, and a few were carrying out corpses. His face darkened as he realized what had happened. Looking at Qin Chen, who was already walking farther away, Shingang recalled his earlier words. Kill the dragon, destroy the tiger. He really had killed the dragon and destroyed the tiger. Shingang took a deep breath and turned toward the sign shop. This time, he decided to name the martial arts hall Kill the Dragon, Destroy the Tiger. The name wasn't particularly imposing, some might even say it was a bit juvenile, but he was determined to use it.